Sorry, officer. What's wrong?
Something stung me.
Are you okay?
Resident Evil Requiem is a 2026 survival horror game developed by Capcom. We follow FBI agent Grace Ashcroft, who is called to work a case at the very site her mother was murdered. According to Van Jones, she's the only one who can crack it, but apparently, so long as she dwells the hellscape solo, despite possessing trauma thicker than a vagrant wearing everything they own. However, Requiem isn't purely Tyler Perry torture porn. Grace's case puts her in the path of a comparatively peppier protagonist who, despite a certain scourge, is cooler than a snowman's perineum. Do yourself a solid, never image search perineum.
Why are you the way that you are?
Resident Evil 9's story is smooth, presenting the player enough to keep them captivated, but not so much it proves diverting. You'll ask questions like, will Grace keep talking like a hypothermic bull rider? Will Victor ever outgrow his eczema? Or with that walk and that malady, is Leon just aging into Quasimodo? Some plot points are implausible, like Dempsey dispatching Grace, who's basically a hyper-autistic toddler, or how a certain character steers a sentient scab like it's Bolt Gundam, while every other infected entity is one singular organism. Requiem features a few antagonists. However, Victor Gideon felt the better of the bunch. He's as grave and grounded as a giant snake man can be, avoiding the shallow comic book characterization that is somewhat more evident in Xeno. Overall, Resident Evil 9 delivers a dependable plot, balanced by bits of levity through Leon and moments of solemnity through Grace. The two are thoughtfully developed, with distinct identities, significantly shifting the game's tone and making each perspective a pleasure to play.
What is this? Hey! Help!
However, the narrative isn't the only expertly executed element. The visual presentation of Requiem is exceptional, like Steve Harvey's hairpiece exceptional. Thanks to the habitually blank UI, it's easy to forget that you're maneuvering a simulated mannequin rather than watching a competently crafted horror film. Environments are meticulously rendered, effectively exhibiting wear and tear. Settings frequently evoke a sense of claustrophobia, which heightens tension. Requiem puts the fear in atmosphere. A shadow darting past a pane of glass, a ball blowing across the floor of a faintly lit room, or drapes dancing in the darkness, tempting you to trust that when the fabric settles, something monstrous will be born behind it. This game resurrects the horror of Resident Evil 7 while sustaining the brutal combat of Resident Evil 4. It's the perfect marriage, like bananas and peanut butter, or Jada and Will. Notice how I mentioned the men of the relationships first.
And
Seriously though, my playthrough probably ran 20% longer because this game successfully conditioned me to fear walking forward. Capcom pays spectacular attention to detail, like how light handsomely contours Grace's hair, or like when she falls into a pool of blood, not only are her clothes covered, but her hair clumps. And it's for this brief moment that you forget she's wearing Asmongold's t-shirt. But this pictorial prowess doesn't only apply to PCs, but also NPCs, who bear enough visual diversity that their recurrence is minimal. Now, how many Lost Planet players saw the first Blisterborn and knew exactly what to do? I know I did. Remember playing RE4 Remake and thinking the dash was doo-doo? Well, Capcom clearly has a fecal fetish, because the sprint still feels like a fat dude shuffling to his porch for a DoorDash drop-off. On the matter of movement, I gotta give Capcom their kudos, as Grace and Leon are effectively distinguished through their physicality. Grace, for example, trembles while holding her gun and may fall while fleeing, convincingly conveying her fear and inexperience. This stands in contrast to Leon's composed and confident demeanor. Initially, I found Grace's traits unappealing, but my perspective soon evolved, as I recognized that her vulnerability reinforces the game's horror elements and encourages a more deliberate and methodical approach to gameplay. While initially off-putting, these characteristics meaningfully shape Grace's playstyle, differentiating her from Leon, whose personality naturally lends itself to a more action-oriented experience. Ultimately, although Grace's playstyle differs significantly from Leon's, she is no less fun to play. Turns out, she's more compelling than Ethan, who's as cool as a car crash. But characterization isn't limited to the mains. Here, zombies exhibit more individuality than in previous entries, behaving in more varied and unpredictable ways, which makes them more formidable. It's like fighting an army of Kanyes. I encountered a recurring issue where I would inadvertently apply pressure to the right stick while targeting enemies, causing my character to crouch. Beyond momentarily disrupting the perspective, this negatively affected aiming, which was the reason I was using the right stick in the first place. Being able to assign crouch to a different input would have been preferred, but to my knowledge is impossible. Aiming almost felt as unwieldy as a chicken noodle soup sandwich.
Right.
That said, in high pressure situations, I frequently mistook R1 for an action button, resulting in the unintended consumption of health items. I attempted to reassign this function, preferring instead to use herbs from the item menu, but the game does not support fully customizable control remapping. In this regard, the game is as unforgiving as that homeless guy you gave money and bought lunch for, but the next time you saw him and couldn't afford to do either, he treated you like a stuck-up, stingy so-and-so. Side note, have you ever noticed that for people who are dirty and live outside, you've never seen one sick? A lot of mention of the homeless in this video. Leon's weapons can be upgraded, affecting attributes such as power, rate of fire, etc. It's hard to say if the enhancements had a measurable impact or if I'm just inherently awesome at the game. You guys believe I'm awesome at the game, right?
I'm kind of retarded.
I played Requiem on PC. Initially, despite connecting a DualSense controller, the game displayed icons for an Xbox controller. Going into button settings and selecting Type B resolved a minor issue. The score shifts between visceral, fast-paced compositions that complement Leon's more violent sequences and restrained atmospheric tracks that heighten the horror for Grace's sections. The music exhibits both variety and cohesion, transitioning from slow, eerie tones to more intense, action-driven arrangements. The sound design is dope, whether it's weapon effects or environmental elements. Sometimes these manifest in the form of jump scares, other times in the form of subtle and deceptive auditory cues, such as distant creaks or faint sighs. These noises will make you more nervous than a Tibetan Mastiff seeing Hassan Piker reach for anything. The voice acting is exceptional across the board. That said, Leon is just John Wick but with a slightly broader vocabulary. And if stutters were bullets, Grace would have nothing to worry about. Resident Evil 9 delivers an engaging story, driven by the contrasting personalities of Leon and Grace, with strong atmosphere and immersive visuals. Blending the horror of Resident Evil 7 with the action of Resident Evil 4, the game features detailed environments, tense sound design, varied enemy behavior, and distinct playstyles that keep gameplay fresh despite occasional control frustrations. Overall, its polished mechanics, strong audio presentation, and refined design make for an excellent and consistently immersive experience. Simply put, Capcom must be butter because they're on a roll.
Why are you the way that you are?
Perhaps you long for a game with a more prominent female protagonist. If so, check out my review of Rise of the Tomb Raider. Or, if you fancy shags over Karen cuts, check out my review of Star Wars Outlaws.